I was reading 12 Years a Slave before seeing the movie and before coming to interview you guys, and there was a line that stood out to me. He said that I would have given more years of servitude if they had only moved me into the shade. And that line really stood out to me because I thought the fact that he could go through all of that and still have the conscious mind to be able to write it out was unbelievable. So I was curious, to be able to understand him, what helped you more? What he actually wrote on the page or the fact that he was able to write it to begin with?
I think what he wrote on the page was incredible, and I think his autobiography is a real testament to him and his soul and his ability to withstand this extraordinary experience. And that line, exactly that line, when he's hanging from the tree and he has this moment many years later, where he's writing about that moment, and it just goes to show, I think, the depth of his soul and his spirit. I think it was in that moment in the book that I realized that he had a sort of unbreakable spirit.
That particular line?
Yeah, it was exactly that moment. You know?
Interesting.
And actually doing that scene and doing the stuff around with the tree and the hanging and, was really, it was uncomfortable and a distressing scene in its own way, but it was also this an amazing point of connection, of really remembering that in the book that was the beat that struck me so much.
For sure. When you look at the most successful films about slavery over the last 20 years, whether it be Amistad, which obviously you were in, or The Color Purple, or Django, or Beloved, or even Glory to a certain degree, they all have one thing in common, which is that they were directed by a white man. Do you think the fact that 12 Years a Slave is directed by a black man, Steve McQueen, does that make any sort of difference in the film?
I don't know. I think it's I think what Steve has is, I don't think it's a racial issue exactly. I think that Steve is an exceptionally talented guy, and I think that really came into play in this. I mean, I'm sure that he is connected to the material in a very strong way, being from, his heritage is from the West Indies, and of course there was a massive trade in the West Indies and slavery, and that's probably one of the reasons he was drawn to the material. But I think that his strength with this is the same as his strength in Hunger and in Shame. I think he's just an extraordinary talent.
Well, boy, how you feel now?
My name is Solomon North. I'm a free man, and you have no right whatsoever to detain me.
You're no free man. You're nothing but a Georgia runaway.
When it comes to the topic of slavery, what is something that before you took on this role, there's no way you could have wrapped your brain around, but now that you've done it and it's finished and you can look back, now you can at least say, you know what, to some degree, I understand that.
I think there was just the levels and the layers in the society, the industry of it all, which is why in this, we have, Solomon starts off in timber and cutting trees and trying to rafting trees down the swamps and the marshes in Louisiana, and then he goes into sugarcane, and picking cotton, and I think that the story sort of talks about the entire industry of it,
So
and
like the business side of it.
Exactly, and then the sort of society of that as well. And there are surprising characters. Alfre Woodard in the film playing Mistress Shaw is a very interesting and surprising part of the whole infrastructure, and I think that's what the book and that's what the film gives us. It gives us a whole section of that society and the industry and the mechanics and the factory of that society.
Absolutely. I've always been curious, as someone who grew up in England, is there a difference in the perspective of how slavery is taught versus maybe how someone is taught about it in America? Is there a different angle at it, a different look, or do you think they're taught the same way?
I would suspect that a lot of the information is out there. I don't know if we were specifically taught about slavery when I was in school. I don't know if, but it's something that obviously growing up is something that I have taken on and looked at in many different ways, in many different parts of times in my life, and in different places. Not only the West Indies and obviously Britain's relationship to that, but in Africa, Nigeria is where my heritage is and where a lot of slaves came from. So it's always been something that has been of great relevance to me, and something that I've always looked at, not just in the American slave issue, but the kind of global ramifications of that. I think slavery was such an international event that affected the entire diaspora, and still does, the African
Absolutely.
diaspora.
Absolutely. I could talk to you all day. Seriously, it is a great honor to get to sit across from you. I mean, I really wanted to do these interviews because I knew this was an incredibly important film. So thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank
If you ever
you.
come to Houston, I have a very comfortable fold-out couch.
Okay.
So it's open to you, man.
Sounds
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Went down to the